And welcome and happy International Women's Day for all of our listeners out there. My name is Dr. Akeem Stewart, and welcome to Black Health Unfiltered, the program where real conversations meet real solutions. Broadcasting live on Love Bay Radio, we dive deep into the stories, struggles, brilliance, and resilience that defines Black health across the diaspora. This is a space where nothing is off limits, from mental wellness to medical myths, from community healing to the systems that impact our bodies and our futures, guided by experts, insight, lived experiences, and unfiltered truth. We are here because Black health deserves clarity, power, and a platform. So let's elevate this conversation and reclaim our narrative one episode at a time. As I said, my name is Dr. Hakim Short, and we're on a special day today on the day of God's gift. Because if you read the Bible, for all those who are Christian and do practice religion, it's very explicitly said that women are the gift of God. And we have a special day today called International Women's Day, which every day should be celebrating. Should be celebrating women standard. But on top of all of that, we have an opportunity to speak with someone today about a really special topic in my mind because it speaks about Black girl joy. And coming from a Black woman, growing up with who my closest friend, my sister, who's a Black woman, you really see the insights of what it means to have that Black girl joy. And I think it's really good that we can have a conversation about it and hopefully bring understanding to a lot of different people who may not truly tap into what that is necessarily or be able to put it into words. So today we have the opportunity to speak with Renee Whitaker, who is a PhD candidate in cultural studies, whose research centers on Black girlhood in Greater Toronto and Hamilton area. She holds a bachelor's degree in sociology from Toronto Metropolitan University and a master's degree in sociology from Queen's University. Renee brings extensive professional experience in the disability sector with a focus on supporting Black and racialized youth, navigating the criminal justice and child welfare systems. She has also taught university level sociology courses at Queen's University and college level courses in special topics in sociology and introduction to Black studies at Durham College. Her academic and professional experiences inform her research, which explores Afro Caribbean diasporic women's and girls' engagement with self care, radical care, community building, and transformative justice practices in Canada. Welcome. Welcome, Renee. How are you doing today? How is it? Happy International Women's Day. I know I would have mentioned it
Thank you
before,
very
but
much.
again, I'll echo it. How's your day going so far?
The day is actually quite lovely today.
Right.
After having a very long, it feels like a very long and cold season.
Mm-hmm.
It was nice to have a nice sunny day. Was able to, fellowship this morning,
Mm-hmm.
and join you lovely folks for this
Right.
afternoon.
And as being like all the cold days we have, the best day we have is on International Women's Day. So God's plan, all right?
Exactly.
All right, the breaking of March. So today we got a very loaded conversation here today. Loaded not because it's gonna be heavy, loaded because it's so exciting to be able to diverse in what science is, that you have put into Black girlhood and Black girl joy, right? And we sit down, we think about the concept of it, what is Black girlhood and Black girl joy, and what does that mean from the levels, because this is not necessarily talking about just youth, right? Black girl joy spans across from those who may be toddlers and babies all the way to grown women and those in their senior ages, whatever the case is. It never changes. It is constant. It lives as a constant. But first, before we get into that, what inspired you to get into like the whole aspect of the PhD to even make that focus?
What inspired me to get my PhD? To be honest, I think I've always been overly curious. And I'm going to answer a question you're not going to ask yet, but you might ask later.
Mhm.
What really sparked my drive to do a PhD specifically in Black girlhood was my experiences in living in Melbourne,
Mm.
right? So grew up in Melbourne from inception.
Mhm.
But as a curious Black girl, I was always being scrutinized,
Mhm.
right? So I remember specifically 2 or 3 different incidences where, I actually remember this incident really, really well. I remember going to Pearson. So my mom sent me to a school far away from Melbourne because she's like, no child is going to Melbourne. But I went to ESA from grade 8 to grade 11. OAC, just before OAC.
Mhm.
OAC is no longer a thing. I am now aging myself. I apologize. so, but I did music theater,
Mhm.
right? My school stopped having music theater in OAC. So I was like, it doesn't make sense taking a 2 hour truck from Toronto to Etobicoke
Mhm.
for one more year of school. So I went to Pearson for a year.
Mhm.
The first week of school, I remember like vividly. I went to another family studies course because I love family studies. I love sociology. I love psychology. And the professor was talking about, or the teacher was talking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs,
Mm.
right? And so for those who don't know Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it's basically the first level is food and shelter, love and belonging. I can't remember the rest of them. But while she was teaching this course or teaching this stuff on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, she's like, you can be in two different places in your on Maslow's hierarchy of needs at the same time, just different parts of your life,
Mhm.
right? And I was like, Miss, actually, that's not true, right? Because if you're hungry and you have nowhere to live, you really don't care who loves you.
Mhm.
I remember saying that vividly. From that day on, she stopped talking to me. I could have my hand up for 20 minutes and she would completely ignore me.
Wow.
And so my mom had to come in and she's like, girl, you need to stop asking questions in class, right? The teacher doesn't like you for some reason.
Mhm.
You're asking too many questions. And she used to come into class with like, I'm dating myself again, Ask Jeeves searches,
Wow.
right? Because she didn't want me to correct her again in class. And so things like that kept happening as I was entering to different spaces. And so when I finally decided to pursue my PhD, those were the things that informed why it was important to question why those things happen in classes,
Mhm.
and specifically to Black girls.
Oh, nice. And that's such a way to really show that, like, I gotta challenge the system, and it came from the fact that you had to challenge someone who was maybe wrong enough to not adult enough or mature enough to just say, you know what, maybe that person is allowing me to learn. That's what you always look at it. Like, you can always learn this. That's why I think that drives you in life, the
Mm-hmm.
ability to constantly want to learn and be able to learn. Because when you stop learning, what else is there left for you to go for?
Exactly. And the really the nuance of that for me was if my colleagues who didn't look like me would ask those same questions or challenge those same sort of assumptions, it would be seen as being the bright child,
Mm-hmm.
the inquisitive child. But because it came from somebody who looked like me, it became as like a defiant child,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so, how do we rupture that in spaces that Black girls have to engage with on a regular basis?
Okay, so and I guess that gives you the pipeline to
Yep.
go directly and talk about Black Girl Joy. So I'm gonna ask you then, before we even get into like the main questions today, like what defines Black Girl Joy for you? Or what when you say that, or when you think about Black girlhood, what does that in society of today, right? What does that what's how do you define it from your perspective?
So there's two major terms that you're sort of bringing up right now. So one would be Black girlhood, and how
Mm-hmm.
do I define Black girlhood? And the second is how do I define joy?
Mm-hmm.
And so first, I define Black girlhood as this sort of liminal space, right? This in between, right? So and it's only in between because of racism,
Mm-hmm.
right? I lean on the work of Dr. Keisha McPherson, Dr. Catherine McKittrick, and they talk about, and also Dr. Paul Gilroy, right? And specifically, I love Paul Gilroy's and how he kind of thinks about modernity,
Mm-hmm.
right? Especially for Black people, where we're always sort of leaning towards modernity. We're always sort of becoming the civilized folk. But as we get closer to these markers of civility, the goalpost keeps moving, right? And so I think about girlhood as that same sort of aspect where markers of girlhood, markers of childhood are constantly shifting for Black girls,
Mm-hmm.
where playfulness, where resilience, where, I mean, not resilience, playfulness and curiosity are criminalized or adultified in Black girls. And then in the same instance for Black women, their reactions, their natural reactions to trauma, not trauma, sorry, their natural reactions um, to any sort of environmental changes is also uh, infantilized,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you're sort of not given the privileges of being an adult, and you're not given the privileges of being a child in either spaces. So you're existing in a space of in between.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say like the upside down from Stranger Things,
No, you're
but
very correct. You're very, very correct when you look at it, right? You know,
mhm.
so not you look at it like you exist in between. You see it from so many different aspects, right? You see it from that, as you said, like women aren't, they can't have the natural reaction to a certain thing that might be seen as a change, just a normal change where like, hey, what's up? Like this, I don't mess with this. Like, let me take
Mm-hmm.
a second to talk about it, and then you have young black girls who aren't allowed to be girls
Mm-hmm.
anymore, and then you have society pushing them to be so many different things outside way before their time, and not
Mm-hmm.
allowing them to be children,
No.
right? And where a lot of other cultures they allow their kids to be kids until they're 21, whereas in our culture, and as you we can search from slavery times, you had to become the older person, you had to be the caregiver, you had to be the one that provided, you had to be one to take care of the home while mom is gone, because that was stripped from your home. So now we gotta clean. So now you gotta make sure you
Mm-hmm.
clean. I don't got enough time. I work in 3 jobs. So go make sure that your little brother get ready and pay the
Mm-hmm.
thing, and then make sure clean them all the dishes, wash up, and all that stuff. And you're 9 years old. You're doing so many different things, and all you want to do is play with your toys or go outside and or whatever the case is, but you can't.
And it's multi-layered, right? So it's not even just cultural, but it's also like institutional, right? So like so cultural, it's based on like economic standing, because if you're coming from a black family that has the resources, they can have extra help come in,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you're coming from a black family who doesn't necessarily have that many resources, you are required to step up.
Mm-hmm.
So we all have to share the load. But when it comes to like institutionally,
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking specifically about, there's a newspaper article in the 1990s ish,
Mm-hmm.
where a kid wrote a word, just one word, on a bathroom stall. There's
Mm-hmm.
two kids actually wrote a word on the bathroom stall. One kid was white, one kid was black, right? The black kid was able to, no, the white kid was able to pay the $30 or the $100 fee
Mm-hmm.
to have the janitorial staff like clean it up,
Mm-hmm.
right? The black kid did not have those resources,
Mm-hmm.
right? And instead of sort of having alternative methods to sort of work through that space,
Mm-hmm.
the black kid was then criminalized, had to go to juvenile court for one word
For
on a
one word.
bathroom stall,
That's insane.
right? And so, like, how does that? It actually like articulates itself in like real challenges.
Mm-hmm.
So now this kid has a juvenile record
For no reason.
for one word,
Mm-hmm.
right? Another instance where a child in Mississauga, I believe, where she had some developmental challenges, um, and instead of the school calling the parents to sort of help calm this child down, where they're having like, you know, a meltdown, where children usually have meltdowns.
Mm-hmm.
You see them in the grocery store all the time.
Mm-hmm.
They called the police, and the police restrained the child for, I think it was like 16 or 23 minutes actually. The police restrained the child for 23 minutes because they were having a meltdown at school. So like it really articulates itself really violently when it's done in institutions,
Mm-hmm.
right? And there was a huge sort of, there was a series on the Toronto Star
Mm-hmm.
that spoke about how black women, when they're encountering CAS,
Mm-hmm.
that they would also get criminalized for having a natural response for a system intervening on their child's care,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so all of these sort of existed in spaces, and institutionally, we still have to challenge those things. But that's still only one aspect of your question.
Because it's somewhat lyric, right?
It's so multi-layered. And joy, I think of joy as entering into spaces or entering into places where you can just be yourself,
Mm-hmm.
right? Where the the one word is not going to be challenged on the bathroom wall,
Mm-hmm.
where I can naturally just have a moment of meltdown. And even though the meltdown may not feel like a joyous moment, but being able to be safe enough to do that can produce moments of joy,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so how do we create spaces where we can come in and be our entire authentic self? I know that's something we talk about a lot,
Mm-hmm.
right? And just be seen as a full human being, right? Those moments are what we can cultivate to create joy.
And I agree. And that takes us into our first question today, that we have talk about, because now we're now asking, how do you define radical care, and how is it different from the way that mainstream wellness culture talks about self care? Right, when you speak about radical care and the importance of focus on black girls.
So when I think about radical care, I think about changing spaces, right? I also think about rupturing the concept of time. So a lot of times we think about and capital, right? A lot of times when we think about care, we think about the nail salon, we think about the getting our hair done. I mean, the hairdresser is also like a really unique space.
It's a cornerstone in the community. Hairdresser barbershops, these are communal spaces that we cannot ever take away from our culture, because you'd be surprised, a lot of people on both sides, right, and I'm talking
Mhm.
about men and women, they go to those spaces to just release stress and have
Yes,
a conversation and get feedback and get some, to be able to talk about things that they may not feel safe to speak about, right? And
exactly.
so, like, yeah, see, hairdresser is a good situation. You go, you spend 4 or 5 hours getting your hair done. You mean you're going to share a whole conversation? You're going to laugh a little bit. You're going to
Hmm.
giggle. You're going to talk about something serious. You want to find out. You're going to learn something new, whatever the case may be. And that's a cornerstone. That's something you can't take away from, especially from our culture. When I say our culture, I mean from the Black culture. You can't take
No,
away from that. Like,
no,
it has embedded to be one of the pivotal parts. So you become a hairdresser, and I'm so like, sometimes I think it's so important that those professions get like mental health first aid training and stuff like
yes.
that, because those guys are therapists. They're like they sit down. They're confidants. They're allowed to tell you, give you be mentors and
Hmm.
give you advice and so many different things, and they're on their feet all day while doing it. Like, really can't take it away. But yes, as you said, like, the here part is very important.
No, it's actually it was one of the pivotal moments of what sort of drew me into doing this in my PhD. Because I used to spend, you said like 4 hours. I remember going into the hairdressers, and ladies, tell me if I'm wrong. And you get there like 8 o'clock in the morning.
Mm.
We'd have breakfast there. Somebody would come over as patties.
Mhm.
We'd have lunch there. And as we're leaving, it's like 7, 8 o'clock at night, because the entire Saturday was spent at the hair salon.
Mm.
I think shortly thereafter, I think after 5 or 10 years of doing this with my mom and myself, she cut off all her hair. And she couldn't.
Imagine, because you're a whole business day.
It was a whole business day. um, but radical self care is lives in those spaces, right? And I find it really interesting because it does rupture time, right? Where time kind of stands still, but it's still moving, right? Because like I didn't realize we were sitting there for so long,
Mhm.
right? Where they're having conversations. I know about Miss Jane and what's going on with Miss Jane's kids,
Mm.
and you learn about your community members in a very meaningful way,
Mhm.
right? Everybody has something to say, um, and so for me, radical care definitely shifts time. It exists in spaces that are unexpected,
Mhm.
right? A lot of my research surrounds like music or arts based groups. So there's two amazing groups in the GTHA that I've had the opportunity in my college years to sort of visit. One would be Toronto's Concert Choir and Performing Arts,
Mhm.
TC3,
Mhm.
right? And they've traveled across the world, across the country, and they remade a space that was completely industrial,
Mhm.
right? So they took an industrial space, and I think back in the day, I'm aging myself through this entire conversation. um, there was like it's like a remake show, and they were remaking churches,
Mm.
right? And so they remade the space for TC3, right? We were
Wow.
able to like knock out a wall, and we took this place that was cold and almost dungeony, like favored a dungeon, and there were bright colors everywhere. There were like bean bags, like they had a special African drumming space. And
Oh,
so like that's radical care,
wow.
where places that are unassuming,
Mhm.
that were not built for joy and remaking and creation, we take those spaces and we remake them.
Mhm.
And through the creation, those kids were able to make joy for themselves.
That's nice. Give me one quick moment
No
to allow
worries.
our listeners to know that they listen to Black Health Unfiltered on Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio. Please subscribe, like, and share. Download our apps from the Apple App Store or Google Play. Visit our website and tap the donate button to make a contribution. This helps us to continue serving you, our community. Please reach out to us at 437-778-3299 if you would like to be a part of today's conversation, where we're speaking with PH candidate Renee Whitaker about Black Girl Joy, and we just touched on radical care and the importance of what radical care is and what it looks like. As you say, those unassuming spaces to and making it become safe. Now, I want to touch a little bit on safety. I know we have so much questions here, but the more I hear you speak, the more I want to just
Go right ahead.
toss this aside. So we know you're talking about these radical spaces and the importance of what it is, right? And safety keeps coming up, right? When we talk about care, we see or we constantly hear, and like I know for a fact that one of the most disadvantaged levels of humanity or sections of humanity is is the black woman, right? When it comes to people having a priority, like they have the most difficulties or barriers throughout in all different aspects, right? It's not fair, no shape and fashion, right? Even when we go past that, the way whole society likes to sexualize our young women from an early age, right? And they have to live within that, and it seems normal, right? And they want to blame it on cultural, and it really is not. And the constant separation of not allowing these, and I'm speaking with these young girls to have that connection with like a fatherly figure or what it be cases, and the way how society keeps forcing, and I would have said this on the show many times, right? One thing I dislike about what the independence of women have done to our community, right? And that doesn't mean I don't believe women should be independent. Let me put out this as a disclaimer before anybody come for me. What I dislike about the independence and how it has done to our culture, it makes us tell our women that they can do battle all by themselves. And by all means, if they have the capability to do it, they can, and I support them. But why should they have to bear the world when they don't need to? Because no other culture is telling their women that they have to do all bad by themselves. They're giving them support and allowing them to be able to do bad with support. It should not be all bad by themselves. It should be all bad with the support of everybody else behind them to drive them. All right. And I don't like that. And that breaks up a lot of the core cultures are the core foundations for raising young young women, right? Right? They don't see what a true representation of love could look like in that situation. And that's not only because of the independence, that's because the other side now is telling young men that they don't need to be this, it could be this and that, and what the case is, and they can have all the different women in the world, and not even, they're not valuing the importance of having a good woman. And that's all you would need, right? On the importance of being there for for their family and showing what it is to have that connection and growth for people to just, and that's because children learn from that, right? So obviously this is a good discussion we wanted to outside of Black Girl Joy. So I didn't want to touch on that aspect, right?
Yeah.
But when we look at the idea of being a safety and how society has made it so difficult for our or the women or the girls of our culture to be safe, right? How do we then look at them and say within Black girlhood, like what's the importance? Like how do you then situate yourself and say, hey, you know what, this is something important for us. This is what we should do. Like how do you then start to shift the needles to stop what is a constant teaching that is only going to hurt us as a society further and further as we go. Because like the same way how men have that misogynistic red pill content, there's a lot of, I don't want to say that feminism is bad. It's not, but it's a toxic femininity. Misandry is the word I'm looking for. Right? There's a lot of misandry content that's out there that is making, because I remember talking to someone like I was they was like, hate men. I was like, oh my gosh, well what has happened to you? And they were like who's the person who hurt you in family? It's like, no, I had a good father. Why the kids? It's like, but so then what, like don't even know why, right? How do we know allow us to protect our our girls and the important and their understanding of what society is before we decide to push this rhetoric that they don't need anybody but themselves and forget about what community is.
So that's a lot of question.
It is. Sorry, I'm passionate about this topic because, like, in the day that I do have a daughter, I want to make sure I give her all the tools for her to be successful, not only in life as a woman in the workspace, but like how she would do her interactions with other women and who when she goes to find her significant other, I want her to be able to be there and he feels safe and she feels safe and they feel safe whatever the case is, or whatever her choice is at that point.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to be able to give her the tools. So when I ask these questions, I don't ask these questions like how we could change the world. I ask these questions like, if I'm a single father, they're looking to have a daughter right next to me, like how can I now make sure that she feels safe to be in these spaces and make a connection and not also feed on the hurt of many other people, other people that may not have the best interest for her, to have the support around her for her to grow.
So, like, okay, yeah, that is. I'm gonna try to break it down. So yes, I feel like there's been a lot of rhetoric, especially on masculinity and femininity, and there has been a lot of. There's actually been currently a lot of pushback on like this independent women, like Black women saying they're claiming their softness, especially really like in this current time frame. And so I really am leaning into that as well. A lot of the other conversation, it's so multi-layered. So like I'm also looking at like our conceptualization of what love is and what we understand as safety and safe. And I don't necessarily believe there is a safe space. I think there are safer spaces, right? I think that we're all human. We're always going to make mistakes. We're going to misstep. And so to claim something as, or claim a space or an entity as being free of all like missteps is sort of misguiding, right? And so I two sort of caveats to sort of answer that question. I'm going to move on a little bit, or return back to the conceptualization of what love is. And I think that a lot of times we think of love like there's the biblical sense of what love is. There's like agape love and the different variations, but I recognize that it also doesn't necessarily give us like it doesn't make it a verb. Right. And so I lean on the Bell Hooks specifically in her text, All About Love. She leans on two psychologists, right? And she says love is sort of like, I wish I was going to try to look it up. But what I can remember of the definition is like love is the building into, right? So like love is like building with somebody else, and so for the betterment of both myself and the person that you're loving, right? And so it makes it more actualized, right? So like I know that I'm loving my nephew because I make sure that he is growing as a good little young person. Do you know what I mean? And that he feels safe, and that when he feels safe not to challenge the world, he's safe to challenge me, but he also knows that I'm always going to make sure that I'm taking care of his needs, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, 100%.
And so I also like the way that she describes what love is, because it also expands not only from like I guess parent to child, but also like intimacy or like loving like siblings, right? It's such a general sort of articulation of what love is that I think that like I lean into it more, right? So that's the part of love. And so how do we sort of move away from these sort of dialectic conversations, right? Where it forces us to sort of other people really more often. And I think that what I would be leaning into is sort of first of all leaning into love, right? A lot of the times when I don't like a person, I would like to say that I love you because you're God's child.
I mean, that's a good way to put it.
I just love you because you're God's child, right? So I'm gonna do what's best for you and me at the same time, and maybe let's create space. But I think that as parents who are trying to create spaces for not only because like you kind of gesture to two things, not only just making spaces for young Black girls to grow and be safe, and also lean into all of the parts of who they are, right? Whether it's the independent part, whether it's the softer part, whether it's the whatever parts they choose to lean into, right? Also creating that same space for men to do the same, right? And I think that you mentioned sort of a little bit like the red pillish sort of vibe, and like I actually had a conversation with a colleague of mine the other day, and I was like, both masculinity and femininity are very fragile, right? And so if we're constantly leaning into these dialectic sort of categorizations of gender, right, we're only sort of pushing ourselves into these really fragile states, and that's when you get these sort of problematic conversations, right? And so Going back to my nephew, because he takes up a lot of my time, lovingly so. He has his own car seat in my car. And so, like, allowing him to have the space, I'm like, it's okay to cry. Like, let's have a moment to cry, right? And let's have a moment to have, like, feel your feelings, right? And tell me what those feelings are. And how can I help to support you through these feelings? Right. And not also making sure that he doesn't feel like he has to always be the strong person, right? He doesn't always have to, be the bigger kid. Well, I would like him to be the bigger kid, right? But also realize, like, you can have human moments, right? And trying to create those spaces for that. I don't have a niece that I spend as much time with yet, but hopefully I can live through those experiences and learn the way that I'm interacting with him, and sort of have those same sort of practices with my nieces.
And you're so right. Like when you define what that love is, and it should be all pushed by the true nature of what love is. Spoke about the agape love. You spoke about the biblical sense. You spoke about what love is, and not since the tangible aspect of what security of love is, right? And I think that's what is being pushed from that fragility, the thing, right? Men feel that the only way they could love is if they could provide with money, and women feel that the only way they could feel love is if they receive, which is not correct. Because security is not things that are easily be taken away. Security is knowing that when you're not in the room, I'm going to respect you. And someone comes at you, I'm going to stand in front of you to make sure that you're not hurt, right? That's what security should be, and that's the safety that should be given, right? A black girl should be able to walk into a room and understand that one, she's not going to be sexualized, and two, if someone tries, to be like, hey, yo, no, you don't do that. That's a young lady. Don't say, a black woman as well. It should feel like, yeah, no, I walk in this space, I don't have to
Put on the mask.
put on a mask, be hyper independent or be on my guard because I know that the person that is with me or the persons around me are going to protect me, right? And then there's still a certain amount of aspects is when she is in the space with other women as well, she should still feel protected as well. Because one thing we find too, and we find it with men, we find it with women, so there's no separation. It's making sure that the people that are in there are also for the betterment of for you, right? I think the discussion I would have had would have recently is the concept of a girl's girl, right? And I think it has gone to a point where that we lost the tact of accountability and being right. Because a girl's girl in my, and this is me being a fool outside looking in because I'm not a woman, so I could only imagine what it is, right? A girl's girl is that girl that helps, that supports women through difficult time, that supports her when she's doing an embarkment of something new, like a new business or whatever the case is, and just like making sure that they're there and representing her through those times. But it came to a point where that, and what I've heard, and this is not coming from me, this is what I hear from this one lady who's speaking about it, and maybe a lot of things she said at the time too was not well vocalized, but we lost the concept of what accountability is within that, right? And because if you want to be a good girl, you have to also be that person to hold that woman accountable for when she may be wrong, and learn things. Like my best friend Jeremy could tell you, if he's wrong, I'm going to tell him that he's wrong, and I want him to tell me that I am wrong, right, when I am wrong as well, right? That's the way I want to operate. I don't want yes men around me, because how am I supposed to learn from my mistakes if everybody's like, oh no, that's correct, all I'm doing is digging myself into a deeper hole, and how could I walk forward if all I could do is but the same walls instead of digging out? I'm going to keep digging down, right? So no, we look at making sure that black women and black joy not only just comes from the safety of what is provided around them, but the safety around other women as well, and the importance of the intercommunication and the relationships. So I know that maybe some part that you had to touch when it comes to black girl joy. So like when we look into that and the connections and the relationships between black women senior to black women junior and girls, right? What is the importance of breaking maybe what might be badly learned experience and making sure that they provide not that trauma but have a stopgap and shelter from what these young women may experience?
So, what I really like, so I'm not sure about, like, I'm not really familiar with girls. That's outside my scope. Um, but I do, as you were speaking, it kind of reminded me of the text from Brittany Cooper, Eloquent Rage. And then that she talks about call in, call out culture, right? And so like it's important for Black women to call each other in and call each other out when necessary, right? And the difference is like whether you're doing it sort of privately or you're stopping something in the midst of it when it's happening, right? And so I think that especially now, I find that young people are calling out and calling in more often,
Mm-hmm.
right? There's sort of like I love the empowerment of young girls these days, and so I think that we're doing young girls are doing a better job of like, listen, this is not a safe space, and sort of collectivizing more across a range of spaces. And so, and I think that Black women specifically are also doing really good jobs of creating spaces where that can be cultivated.
Mm-hmm.
So I mentioned Toronto Children's Concert Choir before, Performing Arts Company. Although it's for both, it's for Black kids across the GTHA, run by a Black woman, right? Who had two girls, right? And so like she was thinking about her girls when she created the space. And then there's one in Durham region called FUE,
A few,
right?
yes, and a few,
Right,
yes.
and also run by a woman who
Mm-hmm.
has two girls,
Mm-hmm.
two or three girls. It has girls, right? And so like I know that they were the integral parts of why she started that program. So I think women are making spaces for Black girls, and through the creation of these spaces is where Black girls are able to sort of cultivate and respond when necessary, not only to like Black women who are needing to be called in or called out in particular places, but also like to call in the community, right? Another author that I like lean on a lot is like Amy Cox, right? And she did research in Detroit, and she was in like this girls Black girl shelter in the Detroit area, and her kids, like the kids from or the girls from that group, created a dance group, and their dance group would go to like the bus stations,
Mm-hmm.
right, and hand out little tidbits about what Black girls were going through that in that community, right, and give people information about like what Black girls need. And so like I think like again, Black girls have been sort of doing the work with the support of Black women who cultivate the material, whether it's space, whether it's um, sometimes snacks. I
Mm-hmm.
often I often give out snacks,
No,
right?
it's
But like
true.
just material so that they can sort of do the things that they want to
I mean, we all love a good snack, right? This is a really
do.
good conversation started. Talking about conversation and allowing our listeners to know today that we're listening to Black Health Unfiltered on Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio. Please subscribe, like, and share. Download our apps from the Apple App Store or Google Play. Visit our website and tap the donate button to make a contribution. This helps us to continue serving you, our community. And for today's discussion, you can reach out to us at 437-778-3299 as we are here with PhD candidate Renee Whitaker talking about Black Girl Joy and a lot of different things because this is a big conversation when we're ready to get into it because and sometimes like as a host like I feel so not equipped to fully dive into everything because I could only like I grew up with my mom and my sister primarily. So a lot of things I would have seen or learned through them. Like I had the opportunity, like I mentioned last episode, to have a second mom who was like a mentor for me, Miss Rollins, who was my biology. She was my lessons teacher, so like extra classes, biology. I met her like when I was like 13, 14. And everything that I would learn, I would have not had a conversation from my mother. Well, she had a conversation with me, and I learned a lot from her. And I still continue to learn from her to this day. And I checked in with her last week actually just to see how she was doing, and like the importance of making sure that I had someone to look up to, right? That like I had the conversation with my sister as well. She sits me down. She have conversation talking about accountability partners.
Mhm.
That is one accountability. She puts me in my place when she needs to, and vice versa. We have those conversations, right? And it all got better when I started to understand. Well, her name was Kimberly. Kimberly, the woman, right?
Mhm.
Right. That's how we really started to make a true connection, and it just makes me think about the importance of that matriarchal component within the Black community and what it is and how we need it. Everybody in the Black community, how the Black girls need it, young Black men need it. I needed it as a child growing up, and now I grew up and I see the importance of it for everybody to put on what's the importance of that respect. So then my question is, how do we continue to maintain that component for Black girls, right, and continue that Black girl joy? Because and not even just Black girls, but just Black women in this entirety, because we're in a level of where we have a lot of kids being raised by kids, unfortunately, right? And when I say that, I say it because there's not much of a village. The villages don't exist like how they used to before,
Mhm.
right? And now you sit down in a space where now that your parent could not necessarily be as ready as they would have been, or might not have the outlets to talk to somebody to help you digest or talk about certain topics
Mhm.
that are needed to be spoken about as a child. And you know you got your left ear devices to find out what it is. So how do we still maintain this importance of that matriarchal complex? Because the matriarchal complex, as you could see, have my sister, my mother, and a second mother.
Mhm.
That's a village right there. Three women to show me exactly what it is and the importance of it. So now, how do we continue or guarantee that women within the Black community have that around them at all times?
I think, like I said, I think that there are spaces. It's just a matter of finding them,
Mhm.
right? So I was doing my research. TC3 also. I mean, I spent my whole high school and college years at TC3 myself,
Mhm.
as a mentor counselor. I thought I was too old when I started,
Mhm.
so I didn't join the choir,
Mhm.
but I was like, I did a bunch of things there. And so they kind of showed me that the spaces do exist.
Mhm.
And then as I started my research, there were like Black girl coding, there are Black girl, like there's so many different sort of spaces that
Mhm.
exist. And underneath it is always led by Black women,
Mhm.
right? And so what I've also noticed is that Black women, like, we're super resourceful.
Oh, 100%.
Like,
That's
we're
why I said
super super
the
resourceful.
matriarchal component cannot be denied.
Yeah, yeah, no.
We are surviving because of Black women.
It's true. But also I think that it requires also, so like I went to a conference, I want to say a couple weeks ago, led by University of Toronto.
Mhm.
And it was Black mental health again. Um, and it was like a lot of Black women in both academic spaces and community spaces who were creating more spaces,
Mhm.
right? Black women in academic spaces who were doing the work of cultivating more research,
Mhm.
and funding and support for community members, while also being the interlocker, right? So, like, sometimes, especially when you're working with the Ivory Tower, they're a little wild.
Mhm.
They make some really crazy requests, and so as an academic Black woman, be like, I am going to be the person who's going to stop that from filtering down into the community,
Mhm.
right? And so there are like a plethora of spaces across the GTHA that exist, and there are an everlasting amount of women who are doing work, whether it's helping Black women to get into STEM, helping Black women to get into STEAM, into the arts, and into medicine, right? It's just a matter of like tapping into the particular nuance that already exists
Mm.
that's there.
I think that's important. Creating those spaces, creating a space where someone could sit down and feel that safety, that
Mm-hmm.
community, and be content. If it's one main thing that we're pulling from this conversation, right, is that Black girl joy. We could sum it up, really surface around the community that you
Yes.
decide to put it into, right? And it's important to know that it's not by you, by yourself. You're not independent of anybody. But that independence doesn't mean, forget what we think about men, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right? When you speak about that independence so much, you start to push away everybody, and you could be pushing away the same women that can help push you up as well and
Mm-hmm.
keep you on the drive, keep you focused, keep you there. So you have to make sure that the spaces that you are in community that you do create, have it and be like minded.
And to know that there's already community there,
Hmm.
right? Like the Black Lives Matter community, that was built off of Black women,
Hmm.
right? And it branched out and it did what it needed to do for that time, and it's still doing what it needs to do. The oh my gosh, FEB Group School
Hmm.
still been going strong. TC3 is going strong. Black women coding, all
Black
of
Barbers
these
of Canada.
Black
Shout
barbers,
out
like,
to Michelle.
yeah,
Hmm.
like, so there's all of these sort of like pockets of spaces that are very specialized, and so like they exist. And so if you as a Black woman feel that there's that you haven't found a space,
Hmm.
and there's a space that you're looking for, like, literally Google it,
Hmm.
right? I'm like the Black Ontario Doctors Network, I believe, is
Hmm.
also, I think the Canada Network is actually built, being head by a woman right now.
I know the Canadian Medical
That's one.
Association is a man now. He's a black man, a black dermatologist, and then
Ah,
the Black Physicians Association of Ontario is head by a black woman. That would be
that's the
Shania. Yes,
yes.
so shout out to Shania as well.
Yes.
She's a friend of mine.
So like there are spaces, right?
Mhm.
And sometimes they're not sort of specialized in Black women alone, but
Mhm.
like it's amazing that we're just cultivating all of these spaces and niches that can create support for other Black women. And if you need a space, create a space, right? The Combahee River Collective is like a great sort of anthology that illustrates that these spaces could have been created. That was done in like the 1980s.
Mhm.
Phenomenal book if you ever want to read a book.
Mhm.
Um, but know that they exist and there's places. And if you don't see something that speaks to you, also create it. So I'm
Mhm.
pretty sure there's 98,000 other women who want to join.
Oh, yeah, 98,000 might be a very, very small number, right? You could be, given how you could reach people. And you keep talking about groups. I remember I can mention a Wallata Hair group as well, right? They have a point where they bring black women into spaces to teach them about hair care, teach them how to care for hair and make connections. Like my last year around Mother's Day, they had that week, we had a workshop where they brought women in a group to help them to style their daughters here
Oh,
and
that's so cool.
learn about how to spell and detangling it and what were the cases and make a connection. And it was I was there and I witnessed and I was like a fly on the wall. I didn't want to be saying anything. I just wanted to see. And you could see the connections being created. You could see mother daughter having the opportunity, something that's so traumatic, and they hear that, and all of a sudden it's like, okay, cool, me and mom can sit down and actually do something that we like each other because she knows a little bit more, so she doesn't feel that she's hurting me, and I feel good because my mom that's making me pretty. All right,
Yes.
same to the same things through here, through those part of it.
And hair is huge for us.
I was just
Like
about to talk
it's
about. We could even touch
huge.
about it because how Eurocentric values have plagued the identity of Black women to only think that having it straight and long. But when you know, like you have the opportunity to be as versatile. You could do straight, you could do kinky afro, you could do curls, you could do braids, you could do locks. All of it is acceptable, and now it doesn't have to be just that one way. And we didn't even talk about Black woman identity. We didn't even talk about that, right?
No.
And what's the importance and what defines that identity for most Black women, right? Is it what we see on online, or what is being shown as the acceptable course for Black women, or is how we all appear? Because when we look at the medical aspect of it, right, having wider hips, right, or being more shapely or to what they would consider, right, that doesn't make you any different or separates you or make you outside the standard. That's your standard. Your standard is within what you are for your genetic makeup and what it is, and that's what should be celebrated for you. You shouldn't have to think that you have to be a size zero. Size zero is not you, and that does not take away, because the older I get, the more I realize the whole size zero talk was a farce, right?
It was.
Like it was just to make you feel uncomfortable within the space where other women, to make them feel uncomfortable. And that's not even separating women from women. That's society making sure to make a way that you don't feel accepted.
And and this is my personal opinion. I do not hold an MD. I personally disdain the BMI. Like it
Oh
is
no, no,
the
no! It's not made for
it's
everybody, because me at my most athletic peak, my BMI would told me that I was obese, right? And I was playing rugby, running 90 minutes, sitting, walking off, not tired, all right. And I'm at my athletic peak, and it would tell me that, like, you would. I remember doing a blood pressure check, right? And as a doctor sit down and goes, like, "Oh my gosh, your blood pressure is 112 over whatever the case is. How is it? Why is it like that?" I'm like,
yeah,
"Yeah, because I'm actually, like, I take care of myself. It's because I look big doesn't mean that I don't take care of myself." Like,
exactly.
I recently did it, and it was the same, right? I make sure. So, like, the BMI is not is a Eurocentric standard that shouldn't be applied to you. That doesn't mean just because it says 30 something percent, whatever the case is, doesn't mean that there is not an opportunity for you to better your health, right? But it shouldn't be the end all be all.
Exactly. I agree. I think that when we think about things in finite spaces, like in finite ways, and especially through European lenses, it does do us a disservice. And so, like, I had to critique the BMI because I hate it.
No, you're right.
Even at my peak, I will never be on the BMI. Otherwise, like as soon as I'm in the BMI, you just blow me away. Like I'm out.
Yeah.
But I would love to touch a little bit about the hair aspect, and I completely agree. And when we came in here and y'all missed it, is I was making a lot of references to music. I'm gonna make another music reference, and so I love India Irie. She's actually one of my favorite artists.
And the only reason that she wouldn't be as big as she was is because she refused to bend to
Yes.
the industry itself. She decided to keep as to herself as a black woman, an important black woman. I love her. I love her.
I love her.
Brown skin is one.
What changed my life was I am not my hair. Right. I think that year I stopped trimming my hair. Did it all fall out? Yes.
Journey.
It was a part of the journey. But I shout out to India Irie because I love the way that particular song speaks to the way that we are not defined by these sort of images. And I feel like there's now a movement towards accepting natural hair, accepting like all the parts of ourselves. And so I do also find, because we met at the Durham Health
the Black Health Wellness Day.
Yes, with Black Health Day. And the first time we did it, I was a part of one of the committees that were a part of doing it, and we also had like a hair symposium because it's something that's so integral to who we are as people, right? We used to. I mean, if you think about the transatlantic slave trade, we used to put like maps in our hair. We put seeds in our hair, right? Our hair, before we even got transplanted into the Western world, was also a means of sort of identifying which tribe you were from, where you stood in the tribe. And so our hair, it speaks so much volumes. And so that now that we're moving towards accepting what our hair looks like, and don't get me wrong, I know I'm straight right now, but I tend to be curly.
That's what I said.
It's very versatile. Yeah.
You can be anything you want.
I can be whatever I want.
Right.
But I really do love the fact that we're sort of not only just taking into those, like having those conversations more, but also like learning and leaning back into like the things that we used to do with our hair and embracing it more.
And now those Eurocentric values, like doing perm and all that stuff, like the incidence of fibroids and one of the cases, you can see it. I would have to pull studies exactly that would show the direct correlation, but it is true, right? And it affected us as black women, the fertility of black women so much because you're putting so many chemicals inside it just to appease the gaze, the white gaze, and it wasn't. And I'm going to say straight off the bat, it is appeasing the white gaze, and it still didn't benefit us.
But it was more than just appeasing the gaze. Like I had a very interesting conversation with some folks, and I realized it's also a means of survival. So if you are not able to conform to particular Eurocentric values, you're seen as unprofessional. Right? Being seen as unprofessional has economic, consequences, right? So if you want to climb the corporate ladder, then you got to straighten your hair, right? You can't wear the head wrap, right? I think if there was a very, please quote me if I'm wrong, correct me if I'm wrong, but I do recall there was Anchor, I believe, Black Anchor, who constantly was having to like straighten her until she got her contract, till she knew she was good. The day she was good, she took off the wig, right? And so like it's always having to sort of have that play of how much we are supposed to sort of adhere to.
Did you singing that's what it? So correct me. So I'm gonna correct myself. Then appease the white gaze, having to appease within the white standard to be able to go ahead.
Yes.
Due to survival.
Yes.
It's a better way to say it. Yes.
Yeah. I agree.
I apologize for saying appeasing the white gaze.
But you're not wrong.
Better explain of making having to do the tiptoe and song and dance in between just to have the same advancement that your other peers may have.
Yeah, I mean that's why we also code switch. Right. I wish I could code switch.
I can't. I mean, everyone's like, my Beijing accent refuse to ever go anywhere, and I already can't.
I mean,
it's me.
I was trying to deny the fact that I was born in Canada until somebody asked me if I was from Trinidad. My parents are Jamaican. I was in Jamaica at the time. He's like, "Are you Trinidadian?" I'm like, "No, just Canadian, just Canadian." But like that's also a survival method, right? So
yeah. And when you look at the whole like the aspect of identity and all that stuff. Oh my gosh, man! Like I hear looking at the time, it's kind of like we got 6 minutes left. And like,
Oh, really?
yeah, we haven't really touched like we could dive into more the identity and the aspect of what it is. We could dive into more of having to code switch and
Hmm.
the importance of being true to who you are in those
Yes.
opportunities and those options. Like imagine someone makes a joke like, "Oh my gosh," and the whole walk, "Oh my gosh, how do you get it done?" And just start touching here straight away.
I wish I
I
had
had
learned the dive better. My sisters can do it with such grace.
done.
I'm more of like a deer in headlights.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Is this really happening right now?
literally,
Like, but
literally.
like, no, like, and I've heard it so many stories. I've heard it like, oh my god, it's so good. How can I get it done like this? Oh my gosh, I'm like, no, you can't.
I'd be
I'm
like, ask
sorry.
Jesus.
I'm sorry, you can't.
Yeah.
Like, but like, it's what it was, right? Like, and you sit down from the outside and you see so many different people, and then we could talk about not only just protection of black women outside of from other cultures, but then we could have a great discussion of protection of black women within our culture,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Um,
And
yes. I mean, I know that like a lot of this conversation was like, like we got spaces, we're good, but
mhm,
there's sometimes we do some stuff to each other. We're unkind to each other, and
all across the board.
all across the board, and
Mhm,
like so it not that like it's all roses, like
mhm. But that's we
yes,
have the grace in being able to learn about forgiveness and giving it, and then it's up to us. I have had a conversation many times, and I would always say like the issue is not telling um, who are now men what they should do, right? The I think the to really and really and truly the issue is them not knowing what to do, right?
mm-hmm.
But it's also a situation that we should pay more attention to teaching the boys how
Yes,
to be better,
yes,
right?
1000%.
Because it's easier to teach it on the ones that have not learned than to try to make those who've already learned to unlearn to become new, right?
Yes,
That's going to come with more of a cost. But if you start teaching youngsters real quick, those people who try to teach in the wrong ways, they could correct them, and then they'll be like, "Well, that's what they're supposed to." That divide then starts, and then the older they realize, "Okay, well, we gotta do better if these kids are doing better than us." And that's unfortunate truth of the situation,
mm-hmm.
right? And that's how it has to be. Like we can't expect change
It,
at these people who've already set in their
yeah,
ways, but we can do a better job of making sure those to come are a lot better than them. Like I don't want my dad told me he didn't want me making the same mistakes as him,
mm.
right? And I don't want to be making my son or my child to be making the same mistakes as me.
But it also means that you have to share those mistakes.
And he did,
Yeah,
right? We got to talk about it. We can't be ashamed about the stuff that
mm-hmm.
we've done, right? And you learn what the case is, and then be open and be apologetic when you know you're wrong, because you're not going to get everything right.
Yes, that's a big
Right,
thing.
right there.
Apologizing in Caribbean culture.
That's another conversation to talk about.
Not just, are you hungry?
Yeah, yeah, right. But actually, hearing, you know what, I'm sorry, I'm wrong. I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
Let's have a conversation, right? Like I shouldn't have reacted that way. But we're moving on. Today is supposed to be talking about the importance of Black girl joy within our culture and
Mhm.
making sure that we protect it
Yes.
for all Black women, right? Allow them to have those spaces where the older generation could do the hear of the younger generation. They could say, "I'll talk about things that they did growing up, how they used to style it, or
Mm-hmm.
cases, their problems, or not problems, the solutions, the things that they had fun and whatnot, and be able to laugh." So within that, then for the Black girls and women listening today, what is one message you would like them to take with them? And I will have you back if you would like to come back have more of a
Oh,
discussion. I would love to have you back. All
fair.
right, but what is one message you want them to take away with?
I think so. I'm gonna lean on my family because I have like a large. We call ourselves the. I did call us a clan for a little bit, but I
Mm-hmm.
didn't like that.
Mm-hmm.
So we're the Bennett crew. And what I really appreciate about that, the takeaway that I'm able to take from them is that you do need a community, right? Whether it's a chosen community, whether it's a biological community, you need a community, right? No person can stand on their own. And so like you talked about like having these conversations with like intergenerational conversations that help you to learn from other people's mistakes. And like I remember vividly having these conversations in my great aunt's house which is, I don't want to age myself, which is a lot older than I am. So much so, she used to have like, she still does have yellow carpets. Um, her basement used to have like red carpet. And we would like one, two, three, four generations of us just sitting in the living room and sharing stories. Right. And so it's important to have those opportunities. Again, like there are so many spaces that are out there, whether it's like your creative dance group, whether it's a knitting group, whether it's a pottering group, whether it's a art space, like a, what's it called, like a STEM group or like a academic group. Find a space where you are able to be yourself, right? And sort of feel each space out, and build a community, right? Build the thing that will help to lift you up and support you when you need to be supported. And they don't always have to, doesn't always have to be in the same space, right? Mia Mingus talks about pods, right? So creating a pod, whether the pod is just for like, I'm gonna have a pod for work, I'm gonna have a pod who supports me when I'm doing my entrepreneurship, I'm gonna have a pod that helps me to learn how to do arts and crafts more better, right? But having those pods will help to build you up and sort of fill in the spaces that you should like that aren't sort of possible to do on your own.
All right. Thank you so much, Renee.
No
And
problem.
as we had it today, guys, with Renee, we took a PhD candidate talking about Black Girl Joy, and I hope to have you back soon. So we going to stay in contact. There's so much different today. But for our listeners today, brings us to the end of another episode of Black Health Unfiltered on Love Day Radio, where truth, knowledge, and community can come together. Thank you for joining us in these unfiltered conversations that challenge, uplift, and empower. Remember, your health is your power, your story is your strength, and your voice matters in every space you enter. Stay connected, stay informed, and stay committed to your wellness journey. Until next time, keep reclaiming your narrative and protecting your peace. My name is Dr. Akim Stewart. Happy International Women's Day again to all of our listeners, and we shall see you next week.